So today we go to endocrine system. So endocrine system is another important system control for body. So basically we have two systems control of all our body functions. One is nervous system. One is endocrine systems. Nervous systems reactions generally say pretty faster. Endocrine systems reactions is a little bit slow, but it controls all our body functions and balance. So endocrine systems composed by many of the glands. They located in different parts of the body. And it secretion hormones directly into the blood. And maintenance the homeostasis. So that's basically endocrine systems and their working. So endo, that's the medical words like internally. Actual is medical words like externally. So in here, basically it means in endocrine systems, their gland secretions, they don't have special tube. So like the glands and the glands, they meeting together and the secretion the hormones. But the hormones is relieved to the blood circulations. They follow the blood circulations, then sending different tissue or cells. That's the endocrine systems and they're working. Exocrine systems, they still have glands, but their glands connected each other, usually in the center of the glands. They will have a tube in there. So this tube, sending all the secretions, we are not called hormone here, we call enzyme here usually, or maybe some other chemicals. Follow the tube, then sending directly to relationship the organ or tissues. For example, in digestion systems. In digestion systems, we have liver, we have pancreas. Pancreas is the organ, have two parts. One part is endocrine systems. Another part belongs to exocrine systems. Exocrine systems part, their enzyme through the tube directly relieved to small intestine. So that's the difference. And certainly their functions is totally different. So we say inside of our body, we have two systems control all of our bodies. One is nervous systems. Another one is endocrine system. Compare with nervous systems. Endocrine system's control is a little bit slow, but it is prolonged. And the keeping infections is longer, lasts for longer. And the nervous systems, they're working very faster. So that's basically the difference, these two systems. So endocrine systems, we say they secretion hormones. And the hormone regulate different systems and all over body functions, like metabolism, like people growth, like development, and also tissues functions, and also some lot of other functions, including sleep and mood. So that's a very, very important systems inside the body. So let's see what's in the endocrine systems. So basically, this part still belong your anatomy. We have lot of different glands. It located in different part of the body, and they have their special functions. So if we go to the picture, we can see that's the glands located and in different part of the bodies. So endocrine systems is not like other systems. Other systems, it will be connected to each other. Like we will talk about later. Circulation systems, we have heart, we have blood vessels, we have artery, we have vein. They will connect to each other. And also digestion systems. People eating something from the mouth and then go down their stomach, and then small intestine, large intestine, they still connected to each other. But endocrine systems is totally different stories. So you can see the glands, they separate in different parts of the body. They are not directly connected to each other. So that's something special for endocrine system. Now we go to different glands one by one, and then talking about their functions. Let's go to pituitary gland first. Pituitary gland located connections with hypothalamus, below the hypothalamus. So this part. And the hypothalamus connected with the thalamus. Certainly, thalamus belong to our nervous systems. Hypothalamus part. Hyper is the medical word, lower. Below the thalamus. So hypothalamus, different doctors, they have different opinions. Some people thinking about they still belong to nervous systems. some doctors thinking about it should be belong to endocrine system because it self-secretion hormones. But whatever, that's the more important part. Connection nervous systems and endocrine systems. So pituitary gland certainly belong to endocrine system. So another picture here for pituitary gland. Pituitary gland pretty smaller, pretty smaller. If we can see the whole body picture here, you can see how smaller it is. Yeah, just like a dot here. Yeah, just like a dot here. Yeah, pretty small, like a bean. Yeah, like a bean. But it can separate with two parts. We say wax anterior part, wax posterior part. Certainly, both parts connected with hypothalamus. These two parts, they secretion different hormones, and the hormones have their special functions. I just list some common hormones here, but pituitary gland secretes hormone not limited like 8 in here. It's more than 8. So like separation here, anterior part, pituitary gland. Generally say it secretion 6 hormones. And the posterior part, pituitary gland, it secretion 2 hormones. So the hormones, each of the hormones, they have their name, they have their functions. So let's go to each of the hormones one by one and then talking about its functions. So now we are in the anterior part, pituitary gland. And its secretion hormones. The first hormone we call human growth hormone. Certainly, sometimes we can use it short name. So from the name, we know their functions. So they control generally body growth. And also, it also can regulate metabolism. So when these hormones have disorder, so we separate 2 different kinds of disorder. Some deficiency. Deficiency disorder means for some reasons, usually it's genetic reasons, genes disorder. The people couldn't secretions this hormone, or maybe secretion just small amount of human growth hormone. So the result, people couldn't growing up. I think you may see some people on the street. They look pretty smaller, like a case, yeah, like a case. But truly, if you look the face, it is adult. It's not case. And whatever the age, over 20, even over 30, 40, they still sharp. Yeah, they still short. They never grow up again. So usually under 140 centimeter. So that's why they look like a case. They look like case, but it's not truly case. The aging is at least over 20 already, but pretty smaller, pretty small. So that's basically this hormone disorder deficiency. So right now we found the illness, yeah, we found the illness, and then we found the reason caused the illness. Right now we can get a treatment for this kind of people, but we must be funded and treated as early as possible. So certainly under 1 year old is the best, but under 6 years old, still possible to get treatment. Then these kind of people can grow up normally, like normal people. If we find it over 6 years old, or even over 10 years old, yeah, between 10 to 20, we got injection for the hormones. That's we talking about human growth in hormones. We can injection for these patients. They still can go up some degree, but maybe not as normal. If over 20 years old, usually hormone not working because the bone and the bone is fusing together already. So why people can grow can getting like a bigger, basically their bone will be growing, getting longer and longer. But after 20 years old, the bone is fixed there already. So that's this kind of hormone. The first disorder is deficiency. It's not common, but truly we can see that kind of people sometimes. If we try find it early, we can truly treat it and cure this problem. And another kind of disorder for this kind of hormone is excessive. So basically we have deficiency problems. We have excessive problems. So what's the excessive problem they caused? They caused the patient growing pretty bigger, yeah, pretty bigger. That's we call them. Yeah, we call them. I think some of the people like they play basketball, they're pretty tall, but if we like a test for these kind of people, their hormone levels, they possible like high level of the human growth hormone. But it's not caused a big deal. Yeah, they just growing pretty bigger, pretty higher. So over 190, even over 200 centimeters. But the other aspect of the body functions, it is normal. Yeah. So it's not a big deal. The trouble or the problems is after patient getting adult, yeah, like we talking about over 20 years old. Then their hormone secretions increased for some reason, like a tumor, especially growing in the pituitary gland area. And then they secrete more human growth hormone after a year or 20 or even later. So in that time, we're talking about the bone is like fusing or fixed already. Generally say it's not growing anymore. But still have a lot of hormone stimulations or coming. So basically the trouble or problems is the terminal area still can possible getting bigger and bigger gradually, like the hand, like the feet, the toe. Just the terminal area getting bigger, even the jaw, in the jaw area. They couldn't grow in other part of the body. So basically the terminal area getting bigger. So that's another illness name we gave for these kind of people. By human growth hormone excessive condition. So that's basically these hormone can cause two category kind of illness. One is deficiency, one is excessive. Deficiency, usually genetic problems. After people birthing, they will lower hormone levels, and then they couldn't growing up, pretty smaller. Looks people pretty smaller, but not affected other function of the body. They still can smart, They still can study, we talking about another illness later. That kind of people still looks smaller, but also their brain development is slow. But these kind of patients, just smaller, other function totally normal. And another category is too much hormone secretions. If genetically, still from the birthing genetically, and their continually secretion more human growth hormones, the people will getting pretty bigger and bigger. And if after adult, and then for some reasons, their hormone secretion getting more, they only can go to the terminal area, getting bigger. So that's another issue. So that's the first hormone we're talking about, human growth hormone. Then we're talking about the second hormone, thyroid stimulation hormone. So still from the name, we know it functions. So it controls the secretions or activity of a thyroid gland. So basically this kind of control is negative feedback control. What means negative feedback control? So they directly control the thyroid glands secretion, the hormone we're talking about later, thyroid hormones. And thyroid hormones control the body's metabolism. And if the thyroid hormone secretions too much, then they send the information go back to pituitary gland, and thyroid stimulation hormone amount will be decreased, and less stimulations thyroid gland to secretion hormone. Then the hormone levels may be decreased. Then they send the information go back again and increased human growth hormone secretion. So basically, that's what we say negative feedback systems. Control the balance. Yeah, control the balance. So in here, we just remember their functions is control the thyroid gland by feedback, negative feedback system. And another hormone pretty similar, So that's control adrenaline gland hormone secretions. It's pretty long name here. We still can separate. That means adrenal glands. And that means contact part of adrenal glands. So we will talk about adrenal glands later. They have two parts basically. Central part we call medulla part. Outside part is the kind of contact part. So in outside part we secretion 3 hormones. Basically, they mainly control one of the hormone in this part. Still, negative feedback systems kind of control the balance. So that's the third hormone. Now we finish 3 hormones already. Still remember these 3 hormones in the anterior part of the pituitary gland. These 3 hormones relationship with general body functions. Everybody have. And for female and male, their function the same. Then we're talking about another 3 hormones. These 3 hormones, sex relationship. So that's for male and female, the function will be a little bit different. So that's the 3 hormones here. The first hormones, prolactin. The only functions promoting milk secretion. When we need milk, have a baby. After delivery of the baby, then the baby need milk. Then we need milk secretion. So in other words, this hormone normally just working for the female and after baby. Yeah, after baby. Even for female, they don't have baby. Normally, they still don't have these kind of hormone secretions. The second hormone still sex functions relationship, but it for the female and the male, their functions a little bit different. So for the female, the secretions, stimulations for female hormone secretions. And they also stimulations producing the eggs for the female. For the male, for the male. They just stimulation for the sperm. So that's these hormones. And another hormones, still sex relationship. So for the female and the male, still different. So for the female, they also control female hormone secretions. And it also control, some hormone control the patient's pregnancy and relieving for the eggs. So we know for the female, they have a special physical functions for the period or menstruation. They have time cycle. The time cycle during the periods, they will be bleeding. And then after bleeding, they have time kind of recover. So basically, it's controlled by these hormones. And for the male, for the male, it is stimulation or control for the male hormones secretion. So that's for the pituitary gland, anterior part, pituitary gland. We say secretion 6 hormones. 3 hormones for everybody is the same. Another 3 is the difference for female and male person. Then we're talking about the posterior part, pituitary gland. 8 secretion hormones. It mainly secretion 2 hormones. We still can easily remember one hormone. It's working for everyone, the same, female and male. The second one, still sex relationship hormone. So that looks like a little bit easy to remember. Then we see their functions here. So we say posterior pituitary gland, 8 secretion hormones. The first one, we separate the words here. Medical words usually pretty longer. We try to separate the different parts. Then we are easily remember and easily understand. Anti means against. Deal, same meaning like a double or more. Urate, same meaning like urination. So if dual urinations means more urinations. And anti-more urinations means less urinations. It's so complicated here. Like 2 negative means the positive. General meaning, controlled urination. Controlled urination. Decrease the urine. Decrease the urine. So not only decrease the urine, mainly decrease urine. And it also decrease the water loss through perspiration, means from the sweating. Mainly meaning holding more water inside the body. And it also constructing the arteries. What's that mean? Small artery, usually like this bigger. And when they constructing, they're getting smaller. Certainly, inside contents will be less, and the pressure will be increased, and also more water going in. So that's basically maintenance for blood pressure. So that's this kind of hormone and their functions. This hormone is not that easily cause the trouble. But truly, I heard a case, it's not my patient, but it's a truly case. Some people got these hormone disorders for some reason. So what will be happens? They couldn't decrease urination. So they pee a lot. Yeah, they pee a lot. They lose a lot of water inside the body. Then they thirsty. Yeah, then they thirsty. Then they drink. Yeah, then they drink. Drink water. Yeah, drink means here it means water. Yeah, drink water. So it happens, this poor person, they couldn't standing from the toilet. They just sitting there and continually drinking, continually pee. Yeah, continually drinking, continually pee. So that's still pretty severe kind of illness. Yeah, pretty severe kind of illness. Luckily, it's not that common. So water is so important for our life. We need to keep inside our body, not like directly coming from our drink and directly pee out. So that's these hormones mainly function, control the water, decrease the urination. And another hormone in the pituitary gland, this hormone, we say it only working for the female, and only working for the special time, like delivery, baby delivery, and they working for the uterus. Still remember when we talking about positive feedback systems. That's our example here. So we say during the baby delivery, the hormone will secretions and pushing the uterus contraction. And then send the information go back to our pituitary gland systems, like tell it, baby is still in there, not coming out yet. So they secretion more hormones, then send the information again. Thus we say positive feedback system is working until the baby delivered, then it stopped. But they still have another functions. Help the growing the breast, the breast to help within prepare for the milk. So that's the pituitary glands and its hormones. Now we're moving to thyroid gland. So thyroid gland located in the front of the neck, that's our physical location, in front of the trachea, that's trachea. And they basically have two lobes, left side and right side, but they connected each other in the center, like a capital H. So that's our thyroid gland and its location. Thyroid gland secretion 3 hormones. But I would like to say first 2 basically pretty similar. One is active hormone, one is inactive kind of hormone. Their chemical structures pretty similar also. Just the item number is different. So that's we say this hormone. Another hormone, they have totally different functions. Now we go to some detail about the thyroid gland and its hormones. Let's talk about the first one, or maybe first 2 together. That's the first 2 hormones we talking about. These 2 hormones, we say they are pretty similar, but you can see 3 here means 3. That's why we say T means thyroid gland. 3 means 3 idle in there. 3 idle thyroid hormone. So that's the meaning. Then we talking about the T4. T4 basically is 4 idle there. Thyroid hormone. But usually we directly say that's thyroid hormones in there. So that's basically we're talking about thyroid gland and its hormones. We simply can call it T3, T4. So still remember it control by the hormone in the pituitary gland. We have a special hormone, we call it thyroid relief hormone. This one. So that one is like on the hypothalamus. Yeah. So thyroid stimulation hormone is under the control with TRH. But for the pituitary gland, they secrete the hormone, thyroid stimulation hormones. So when it relieves, so low thyroid gland hormone levels in the blood, they will be increased secretions. And also low metabolism rate, they still increased their secretions. And by some special kind of conditions, people feel cold, certainly need to generate more heat. And the people pregnancy, they need more energies. They secretion more. And the people do some more physical working, or maybe go to high mountain, they need more. So that's basically control under these two hormones, but we just try to remember why. Just try to remember this one, secretion by the pituitary gland anterior part. So this hormone directly control T3, T4 secretion. Still remember that negative feedback systems. Two high level hormones will decrease that hormone secretion. Low levels will be increased hormone secretion. So that's it control part. That's it control part. Control directly by pituitary gland hormones. And the mainly actions, mainly action or functions. We say both T3, T4 increase the metabolism rate. Means people get more like heat, more sweating, or even sometimes eating more or drinking more. And the stimulation producing the protein. Inside our body, we have a lot of protein, especially in our muscles. It's a lot of protein formed. So we can say build up muscles also. And increase the use of the glucose. Glucose is the sugar. Sugar directly produces our energy. And also increase the use of the fatty acid. That's basically for ATP production. ATP is the energy we can directly use inside of bodies. And certainly they have some other functions like help the body growth. So when we talking about maturity, when we talking about the pituitary gland, we have specially growing kind of hormones there. Right now we got another hormone, T3, T4 here. Still control the body growth. What's the difference? These two hormones. So this hormone level is low. The people still look smaller. But the difference, this hormone not only control the body growth, they also control lot of other functions here. They build up for the body and also build up their functions. So especially directly relationship with development of the nervous system. In other words, if people this hormone kind of genetic reason originally not secretion normally, like a deficiency. People look smaller and their nervous systems not development also yet. So that's some people like not like normal people. They couldn't calculate. Even the speak functions is slow. The walking function is slow. The calculation function is slow. Language is slow. Everything is slow. So that's the difference we're talking about these two hormones affected of the peoples. So that's basically the function here. So that's a pretty important hormone and their functions. So some people got like after the adults, they may still got trouble. The hormone secretions lower. We heard about some hyperthyroidism kind of problems. In that kind of case, the nervous system development already, and the body build up already, is not truly affected their nervous systems and their build bodies producing anymore. But truly, these kind of patients, their metabolism level is low. So that's the difference, like genetic problems, and later on people got the similar problems. Affected will be different. So that's two hormones we're talking about the same function, T3, T4. Yeah, they are the same function. Then we go to another one. Yeah, another one. Another one from the name, you know, that's basically control the calcium iron level. So that's the hormones. So still negative feedback control. So that means, when high blood levels, calcium happens. It will be stimulation, it secretions. So the hormone will be increased. The hormone's functions directly low blood levels of calcium level, and also for some other things. When its level is decreased, then their secretion will be decreased. So that's generally say control calcium level and phosphate levels. So that's just for these hormone and its secretion and its function. So that's about of our thyroid glands. Thyroid glands, we say secretion, 3 hormones, but 2 hormones function the same. Another one, they have special functions. It's not like that complicated, like a pituitary gland. The next one, parathyroid gland and its hormones. Para kind of words like attaching. So basically, parathyroid gland It's on the back of the thyroid gland. It's smaller, but everyone have 4 of them. Each of the lobes, they have 2. So pretty smaller glands located on the back part of the thyroid gland. Yeah. So that's the back part of the thyroid gland. We're looking from the back. So these glands still have their functions, the secretion hormones still, but mainly they only secretion one hormone. The hormone name the same with gland name, parathyroid hormone. So what's this hormone doing? All their functions. Their functions increase blood level of calcium and some other iron levels. So that's the mainly functions. Yeah, mainly functions. Certainly they're working with other irons. So that's the mainly function. So still remember our thyroid hormone, the secretion one hormone we call CT. It mainly decreased calcium iron levels in the blood. Now we have a hormone increased levels. So that kind of balance keep the circulation levels, calcium ions balance there. So that's the mainly functions. So basically this hormone is controlled just directly by the iron levels in the blood circulation. If too low, it stimulates secretions. If too high, it inhibits secretions. But truly, it working with CT together control the iron level in the blood circulation. So that's so easier. So generally speaking, thyroid gland and their hormone, they may have different problems like secretion less, mainly T3, T4. And they also possible secretion too much, like a tumor inside. And also some people got swollen of the glands. They still secretion too much. Parathyroid gland and their hormone mainly cause problems like the radio. Mainly is tumor inside and the secretion too much hormones. So that's about the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland and its hormones. Then we move into the pancreas. So pancreas is the glands located in the center of the abdominal area. Pancreas is the organ belong to 2 systems. One part belong to digestive systems. another part belong to our endocrine systems. So like the pancreas here, we take a small pieces of pancreas and make it enlarging, like use microscope times over 300 or 400. Then we can see inside look like this. So pancreas, we say some part, they shapes like cells connect each other, but in the center, there's a tubes there. That part belong to our digestion systems. We're only talking about the center part today. The center part here is a group of the cells in there. They have different type of the cells in there. We name it, yeah, we just give it a name. They shape let be different, and even color maybe let be different. Then by their difference, we name it alpha cell, beta cell, and delta cell. Basically, we have 3 different kind of cells in there, form a group. So this kind of group look like isolates. So that's we name it pancreatic isolates. If we're talking about pancreatic isolates, means we specially talking about that group of cell in here, and we specially talking about endocrine systems. So in this group of cells, we have 2 kind of cells, even more important. We say we have 3 cells in there, but we only talking about 2 cells in here because the secretion so important hormones. So that's why we talking about here. Another kind of cells, we are not totally clear yet, like a relationship with body functions. People not familiar yet. So we are now talking about that kind of cell. The first cell we're talking about alpha cell. Alpha cell secretion the hormones we call glucagon. Then we say beta cell. Beta cell secretion another important hormone, insulin. So that's these 2 cells, they secretion different hormones. Then we're talking about its functions. Let's talking about glucagon first. We say glucagon secretion from alpha cell of the pancreatic isolates. So what's their function? Let's talk about the function first. Raise or increase blood glucose levels, means single sugars level. When we talk about the glucose, these sugars. By increased blood sugars levels, they have a lot of ways. Yeah, they have a lot of ways. They relieve from the liver, and they just increase the levels, sugar level in blood circulation mainly. And another, like we control hormone increase the blood sugar levels, we're talking about later. When we talk about adrenaline glands, we still have other hormones control blood sugar level or increase blood sugar levels. But glucagon truly is one of them. We know like people only eating 3 times a day, sometimes only twice a day. But other time, we still need energy. We say blood sugar level is directly or energy source coming from. What's the other time? Where the blood sugar coming from? It will be released from other part of the body, mainly coming from the liver, because it usually storage in the liver. This storage is not like a single sugars form. This storage kind of other form, but during this hormone stimulation, they can changing back and then release to the blood circulation. So that's basically it functions. Then we talk about the control. What will control it to relieve or secretions? So basically, blood levels, glucose is decreased. That's the mainly reason. Yeah, that's the mainly reason. And sometimes we need more, like people exercising. Truly, they need more energy, need more sugars. Then they secretions and try to get increased. So that's basically, and also like inside the body, we can change it from sugars to the protein, and especially when people eat protein meals, mainly they didn't eat too much sugars, still stimulation, it secretion. So that's the mainly, that's the first hormone we talking about, glucagon. Yeah, glucagon is alpha cell secretions, glucagon. Then we talking about the beta cell. Beta cell secretions insulin. I believe everybody familiar with the hormone insulin. Like you may heard about from some people, they have diabetes. They need the injection for insulin. So what's the insulin's functions? It is low blood glucose levels. Why we need low blood glucose levels? Like we say, we need to use it. Yeah, we need to use it as energy. Why we need to lower it? So that's basically after people eating each of the meal, and then their blood sugar levels will be increased pretty faster, go to high level. But our bodies need to keep internal environments balanced, like we talked about homeostasis before. The blood sugar levels, we need to keep in the same range, yeah, pretty similar range, Not too high, yeah, not too high. If too high, cause the other problems, and certainly not too low. So that after people eating, blood sugar levels go to too high, we need a decrease to the normal range. Then keep the normal function there. So that's why we need insulin. Generally speaking, normal people, after you're eating, your beta cell will immediately relieve insulin and help to decrease blood sugar levels. But for the patients, their beta cell is sick. Their beta cell couldn't produce insulin anymore. So that's why they need injections before they're eating. Yeah, basically, you couldn't too early. If too early, you are not eating, your blood sugar level will be jumping down too faster. And people may be even losing consciousness, fainting. And couldn't too late. If too late, they don't have time to decrease blood sugar level. So basically, just about 3 to 5 minutes before people eating, then they injection insulin. Because insulin injection, after injection, they still need absorptions from the blood vessels and then circulation to the digestion systems, to all over the body. So that's very, very important hormones control of our blood sugars levels. One is insulin, one is glucagon, and their function is different. Insulin is decreased sugars level. Glucagon is increased sugars level. So they keep the balance. When blood sugars level is too low, they secretion glucagon. When blood sugars level is too high, they secretion insulin. So that's the two important hormones in the pancreas isolate. Yeah, pancreas isolate. The secretions. Let's go to another graph. So adrenaline glands. Adrenaline glands, it's located above the kidney. So this part. Everyone have two kidney, and everyone have two adrenaline glands. And if we take adrenaline glands and cut half, we can look inside like this picture here. So center part, we call it medulla. Remember, medulla is not the word we specially use for adrenaline. It just means in the center. Like we talking about kidney, we still talking about the medulla part. And the outside part, same thing. We call cortex part. Just means outside part. So that's two parts here. These two parts, they secretion different hormones. So medulla part, it secretion two hormones. It's called epinephrine or adrenaline, and norepinephrine. So that's in the medulla part, they secretion two hormones here. And the context part, they secretion 3 hormones. Then we're talking about their functions one by one. We're talking about the hormone secretion in the medulla part first. So in the medulla part, we say it secretion 2 hormones. These 2 hormones, their functions pretty similar. Yeah, pretty similar. So these 2 hormones basically functions increased like a heart rate. Let's see where I put my functions. So basically they will increase like the heart rate and make the blood pressure increased. So like pretty similar when we're talking about the sympathetic systems functions in the auto nervous systems, automatically nervous system, their functions. So increase heart rate and make the blood vessels contractions and make blood pressures increased. So, and also, this is not only secretions in the adrenal glands. It also has nervous transmitters in sympathetic or ganglion kind of nerves. They still located in there. In the poster is relieved ACH. Pole is relieved ACH. Poster relieved epitophen. So that's basically pretty similar or stimulation sympathetic systems and make the heart rate increase, blood pressure increase, blood vessels contraction there. So that's in the medulla part and their hormones. And then we're talking about context part hormone. In the adrenaline, in the context part, we say we secretions 3 hormones. These 3 hormones, they have different functions. We're talking about the first one. So these hormones basically control the iron levels in the blood circulations. So mainly functions increased blood levels of the sodium and holding some water and decreased another iron levels. So that's the first hormone secretion in the context part. And certainly it function decreased blood levels of the irons for this one. So that when it increased, will be stimulation this hormone secretion. So that's the mainly still talking about negative feedback systems like we talked about before. That's the first hormone we talking about. Then we talking about the second hormone, glucose. That's we are pretty familiar words for single sugars. And the cortex means in the adrenaline glands cortex part. We are not necessarily remember the cells here. So basically it functions. So certainly is control or increased blood sugar levels. We say we have not only one hormone increase blood sugar levels, but we only have insulin decrease blood sugar levels. So when they try to increase blood sugar levels, what do? They put all the source for sugars coming from the blood. We say protein and fat, truly they can transform each other. So they can breaking down the protein and then changing to the sugar, and also some fat changing to sugar also. But anyway, just try to remember the most important, increased blood sugar level. And this hormone truly control under the ACH. What means ACH? The hormone secretions in the pituitary gland specially control these hormone secretions in the adrenal gland, cortex part of the adrenal gland. So that's the mainly control, and certainly response by low blood sugar levels. So that's the mainly for this hormone. Clinically, these hormones have a lot of functions, like anti-inflammations and depress the immunity systems, resistance for stress. For clinically, we have a lot of these kind of hormone. We are used like a cortisol. Like some people have some frozen shoulder, they may got injections. Basically, it's this category kind of hormone. And also some other illness, patient possible use this kind of hormone. But truly, this hormone, if we use long term, will cause a lot of side effects. So that's this hormone we talked about. And another one, another one secretions in the cortex part. Still in the cortex part of the adrenal gland. We say secretion 3 hormones. This is kind of group of hormones. So we just name it by their chemical structures. So this hormone is kind of help with the early growing and the axillary area and the pupil hair area, basically some sex relationship. And sex functions. Yeah. So that's basically is this kind of hormone is more important after menopause. So this hormone still control in ACTH in the upper part on our pituitary gland and the hypothalamus part. So that's basically for our adrenaline gland and its hormones. We say hormone in the adrenaline gland, it's secretion 5 hormones, but we separate in the medulla part and the cortex part. Medulla part secretion 2 hormones, cortex part secretion 3 hormones.